Today in this module, we are going to learn about monopoly power and concentration. After completing this module, you shall be able to understand the meaning of monopoly power, the various measures of monopoly power, market concentration and various measures of market concentration. Let me introduce the subject of monopoly to you. Monopoly power depends upon the capacity of the firms to influence market price and output. Besides the pure monopolist, monopoly power is also enjoyed by the sellers in all markets in which a monopoly element is present, either in a large or a small scale. In fact, sellers in monopolistic competition, price discriminating monopoly and oligopoly also enjoy monopoly power to a certain degree depending upon their power to control price and output. So the question which arises is, if this is monopoly power, how do we measure the degree of monopoly power? Because we have said that this may vary from market forms to market forms. So as discussed above, the monopoly power shows the degree of control a producer or seller exercises over price and output. Therefore, taking into account price and output, various measures of monopoly power have been formulated by economists over the period. Some important measures of monopoly power are discussed below. So first approach is the elasticity of demand approach. In this elasticity of demand approach, we can understand the meaning of elasticity of demand, which has been regarded by economists as one of the important indicators of the degree of monopoly power. The monopoly power depends upon the extent to which a seller exercises its control over the price and output, which also depends upon the elasticity of demand. Under perfect competition, demand is perfectly elastic, so that firms enjoy no monopoly power. When the demand curve is less than perfectly elastic, some element of monopoly power will be present, indicating that the seller will enjoy some degree of monopoly power. This is seen in case of the markets like monopoly, monopolistic competition, oligopoly, etc. The seller in this case can increase the price of the product as the demand curve for his product slopes downward. Also, the seller can lower the price and increase the quantity supplied to grab some buyers from his rivals. Therefore, when the demand curve slopes downward, the seller uses his power to change the price. The less the elasticity of demand for his product, the greater the degree of monopoly power, and vice versa. When demand is perfectly inelastic, the seller can charge any price for his product. With fixed demand, the seller will enjoy absolute monopoly power. Thus, greater the elasticity of demand, the less the degree of monopoly power enjoyed by the firm. Hence, a measure of monopoly power is given by the inverse of the elasticity of demand as given below in the formula, where M can be defined to be equal to 1 upon EP. This is our equation 1. In this equation 1, M is the degree of monopoly power and EP is the price elasticity of demand. For example, when price elasticity demand is 1 by 5, the inverse of it, the degree of monopoly power will be equal to 1 upon 5 and is equal to 5. Similarly, if the elasticity of demand is 5, the degree of monopoly power will be equal to 1 upon 5. Hence, more the elasticity of demand, the less the monopoly power enjoyed by a seller and vice versa. The second approach to measure monopoly power is known as Lerner's approach, which is also based upon the concept of elasticity. A measure of monopoly power which has gained greater popularity is developed by Lerner. Lerner considers perfect competition as the state of maximum welfare and any divergence from it would be considered as the presence of some monopoly power, which is a result leads to inefficient allocation of resources by the monopolist. Lerner argues that when the market is imperfect, marginal cost will equal marginal revenue, but price will be higher than marginal cost or marginal revenue at equilibrium. This divergence between price and marginal cost is the indicator of the measure of monopoly power. The greater the divergence between price and marginal cost, the greater is the degree of monopoly power possessed by the monopolist. Lerner's of index of monopoly power is therefore given by, or given below also, given by m equal to P minus mc upon P. This is our equation second, where in this equation 2, m denotes index of Lerner's monopoly power, P denotes price, and mc denotes marginal cost at the equilibrium level of output of the monopolist. I am sure you can understand that in one extreme, when the market is perfectly competitive, price is equal to marginal cost. In that case, Lerner's index of monopoly power is equal to 0, indicating no monopoly power at all. Therefore, when P is equal to mc, from the formula it implies that m is equal to P minus mc upon P, and the numerator then becomes equal to 0, and this 0 is divided by P and we get 0, which is our equation 4. So, this is our monopoly power under perfect competition. In another extreme, when the monopolized product involves no cost of production, the marginal cost will be equal to 0. This is our other extreme, and the Lerner's index of monopoly power would be in that case equal to 1. That is, when mc is equal to 0, this implies m is equal to P minus mc upon P is equal to P minus 0 upon P. Hence, we get P upon P and is equal to 1. This is our equation 6. Therefore, we can say thus that Lerner's index of monopoly power varies between 0 and unity in these two extreme cases. As a result, the closer m is to unity, the greater the degree of monopoly power possessed by the monopolist. For example, let the price of product be equal to rupees 50 per unit and let its marginal cost be equal to rupees 30. Then we get m equal to 50 minus 30 upon 50, and it comes out to be equal to 20 upon 50 and is equal to 0.4. However, the Lerner index has many limitations and is obviously not a good measure of monopoly power. The Lerner index can be proved to be the inverse of the elasticity of demand in the case of a profit maximizing firm in equilibrium, and as a result may be taken as a characterization of the demand for the product of the firm. However, it is no guide to the nature of the demand in the case of a non-maximizing firm. While it indicates the divergence between the price and marginal cost, it says hardly anything about the degree of market pressure or the extent to which administrative action keeps the cost at a lower level. Lerner's measure is based upon only one aspect, and that is control over price. It ignores the restraints on monopoly power put by potential substitutes. These would come to exist with the entry of new firms into the industry and powerful factors limiting the monopoly power of the existing sellers. Let us now move on to the third approach, which is the cross elasticity of demand approach. In this approach, the concept of using cross elasticity of demand to measure the degree of monopoly power was first advocated by Calder. However, it has been reformulated by Robert Triffin in his famous work Value Theory and General Equilibrium Analysis. Cross elasticity of demand means the proportionate change in quantity demanded of a product as a result of a proportionate change in the price of another product. In the cross elasticity of demand approach, the measurement of monopoly power points to the degree of dependence of a firm's product upon the price of other firms' products. If demand for a firm's product does not depend upon the prices of other firms' products, then that firm will be completely independent of price and output policies of others, and cross elasticity of demand for its product will be equal to 0. So, the smaller the degree of cross elasticity of demand for the product, the greater the degree of monopoly power enjoyed by it and vice versa. So, this concept is in a way based upon the degree of substitution which is available for a product. Hence, we can write down the cross elastic demand between two products of two firms X and Y as, so M is equal to delta Qx upon Qx divided by delta Py upon Py. This is equal to delta Qx upon Qx into Py upon delta Py and is equal to delta Qx upon delta Py into Py upon Qx. This is our equation 7. In this equation 7, M is a measure of monopoly power, Qx is quantity of good X produced by firm X, and Py is the price of good Y produced by firm Y. The value of M will vary in between 0 to infinity, which shows the degree of monopoly power of the firm. When the demand for the output of firm X is not affected at all by the price of any other firm Y, the cross elastic demand for its product will be equal to 0, that is M is equal to 0. In this case, the firm X will enjoy absolute monopoly power in pursuing his own price and output policy in one extreme. In another extreme, according to Triffin and others, the cross elastic demand between the products of various firms under perfect competition is infinite, and therefore firms under perfect competition enjoy no monopoly power at all. Hence, pure monopoly having 0 cross elasticity of demand enjoys absolute monopoly power, and perfectly competitive firm having infinite cross elasticity of demand possesses 0 monopoly power. These two limiting cases are the ones which we have discussed so far. Given these two limits, the less the coefficient of the cross elasticity of demand, one can say the greater is the monopoly power and vice versa. Having understood this third approach, let us now look at the fourth approach known as the Rothschild's approach in this section 3.4. Now, one measure of the degree of monopoly power has been formulated by K.W. Rothschild to show how far a particular firm controls the market for a commodity. According to him, the degree of monopoly power can be measured by taking the ratio of slope of two demand curves of the firm, one being dd, small dd prime, the demand curve for the individual firm on the assumption that competing firms do not change their price or output, and another being capital DD prime, which is the demand curve on the assumption that other firms change their price or output in the same or some other predetermined way. Rothschild's index M is given in equation 8 and is defined as M equal to 10A upon 10B. 10 is tangent A and tangent B. We can show it with the help of the diagram where we have the small dd prime and capital DD prime curves. We have the commodity X on one axis and the price on the Y axis, and the Rothschild's index is shown in this. This index postulates some assumptions concerning the reactions of the other firms and varies between 0 and 1. If the demand curve for the product of the individual firm is independent of the reaction of other firms, DD prime and DD capital DD prime, they will coincide in this case, and then M would be which is equal to 10A upon 10B would be equal to 1. This we can describe as our equation 9. On the other hand, if the firm is producing under purely competitive conditions so that its price is market determined and completely independent of its own decisions or discretion, the index is equal to 0. That is, M equal to tangent A upon tangent B is equal to 0. This is our equation 10. Therefore, one can say that degree of monopoly power in this case depends upon the extent to which M approaches 1. More M is nearer to 1, the greater the degree of monopoly power. Let us move on now and try to understand the market concentration, its meaning and different measures of market concentration. Market concentration is functionally related to the number of firms and their respective shares of the total production in a market. So, market concentration is associated with industrial concentration, and industrial concentration is concerned with the distribution of production within an industry. Hence, market concentration is a measure of competition which positively varies with the rate of profit in industrial organization. There are two widely acceptable market concentration measures. They are the Herfindahl-Hirschman index, also known as HHI, and the concentration ratio described as CR. These two concentration measures are now discussed with you. One is the Herfindahl index. Let us first start with it. Herfindahl index, which is also known as Herfindahl-Hirschman index or HHI, is a measure of the size of firms in relation to the industry. HHI is basically an indicator of the amount of competition among the firms. It is a measure of concentration widely applied in competition law, antitrust policy, and even in technology management. We can define HHI as the sum of the squares of the market shares of a maximum of say 50 largest firms within the industry, where the market shares are expressed in terms of fractions, which can be written as follows. HHI therefore is defined as sigma SI square, where I is from 1 to n, and SIs are the market share of firm I in the market, and n is the number of firms. This is described as our equation 11. So, for a competitive industry with no dominant players, the index will be very small. The reciprocal of the index shows the number of firms in the industry only if all firms have an equal share. For firms with unequal shares, the reciprocal of the index indicates the equivalent number of firms in the industry. We can normalize it, and let us see the normalization form of HHI, which ranges from 0 to 1 and is written as HHI star equal to HHI minus 1 by n upon 1 minus 1 by n, and this is our equation 12. Now, in this formula, n is the number of firms in the market and HHI is the Herfindahl index as described in equation 12. So, if all the market is shared by n firms, then the index can be reformulated as HHI is equal to 1 by n plus n into V. This is our 13th equation. In this equation, n is again the number of firms and V is the statistical variance of the firm shares, which is defined as, so V equal to sigma SI minus 1 by n square, sigma ranging from 1 to n divided by n. This is our equation 14. So, when all firms have equal shares, that is, the market structure is completely symmetric, so that SI is equal to 1 by n for all I, then VI tend to be equal to 0 and HHI tends to be equal to 1 by n. This can be described as our 15th equation. So, for a given number of firms in the market, a higher variance due to a higher level of asymmetry between firms' shares will result in a higher index value. Let us now describe the second measure of concentration known as the concentration ratio or CR. Given number of firms, the concentration ratio is a measure of the total output produced in an industry. Concentration ratios therefore measure the extent of market control of the largest firms in the industry and to illustrate the degree to which an industry is monopolistic. Thus, the concentration ratio is the percentage of the market share held by the largest firms in an industry and can be defined as CRM equal to sigma SI, where I ranges from 1 to m. This we define as our equation 16. In this equation 16, we have defined SI as the market share and m indicates the ith firm. The CR4 and the CR8 are the most common concentration ratios which indicate the market share of the 4 and the 8 largest firms in an industry. Generally, these two common ratios are comparable from or compared from industry to industry, while concentration ratios for other number of firms can also be calculated. However, concentration ratios vary from 0 to 100% as can be shown in our table below, which is table 1. This table 1 gives you different CRMs and degree of concentration and what is the corresponding market type, where we can see that this concentration ratio is 0, which means no concentration in the case of perfect competition. It varies from 0 to 50%, which is defined as low concentration, where we have perfect competition to oligopoly in the market. We can also have this concentration ratio from 50% to 80%, which can be defined as medium concentration, and this is possible in the case of oligopoly. We may have a concentration ratio of 80% to 100%, which is generally defined as high concentration. This is this exists generally in oligopoly or into monopoly markets. If it is 100% concentration, which is defined as total concentration, then we can have a pure monopoly market situation. So, the concentration ratio which measures the extent of market control and does not use market share of all firms in the industry, and this is how we understand the meaning of concentration ratio. So, it does not provide the distribution of firm size and also does not provide detail about competitiveness of the industry. So, in this sense, the Herfindahl index provides a more complete and realistic picture of industry concentration than does the concentration ratio. Let us now summarize what we have learned in this module. In this module, therefore, we have learned that monopoly power basically shows the degree of control a producer or a seller exercises over the price and output. Some important measures of monopoly power are elasticity of demand approach, Lerner's approach, and cross elasticity of demand approach. We have learned that in elasticity of demand approach, monopoly power basically depends upon the extent to which a seller exercises its control over the price and output, which often depends upon the elasticity of demand. In Lerner's approach, we have learned that the divergence between price and marginal cost could be taken as the indicator of the measure of monopoly power. In the cross elasticity of demand approach, the measure of monopoly power indicates the degree of dependence of a firm's product upon the prices of other firms' products. And according to Rothschild's, the degree of monopoly power can be measured by taking the ratio of the slopes of two demand curves of the firm, one being the demand curve of the individual firm on the assumption that competing firms do not change their price or output, and another being the demand curve on the assumption that other firms change their price or output in the same or some predetermined way. We have also learned about market concentration, and we have said that the market concentration is functionally related to the number of firms and their respective shares of the total output in a market. We have also learned that there are two widely acceptable market concentration measures. They are the Herfindahl index, or known as HHI, and second is the concentration ratio, or CR. While HHI, we have learned, is an indicator of the amount of competition among the firms, CR measures the extent of market control of the largest firms in the industry, and to illustrate the degree to which an industry is monopolistic. However, we have also seen and discussed that the concentration ratio does not use the market share of all the firms in the industry. In this sense, the Herfindahl index provides a more complete and realistic picture of industry concentration than does the concentration ratio. Thank you, students. Thank you.